Welcome to Right on Track, brought to you by the Publishing Club of Laguna Woods. I am your host, Dianna Bolen. Today's guest is Dianna Walsh. You may know her as a regular correspondent for the Laguna Woods Globe. Please welcome Dianna Walsh. I'm very excited to have you here. I'm particularly excited because your career path to becoming a journalist is not a direct one.
No, it's not. And first of all, let me say I'm very excited to be here, and thank you.
You're very welcome. Yes. So, some of your life experiences have been as a stewardess,
Yes.
as a model,
Yes.
retail and restaurant work,
Yes.
freelance photography,
Yes.
barber,
Yes.
for well-known politicians.
Yes. I had a sort of bespoke clientele in Washington, D.C. on Capitol Hill and during the Carter administration.
Do you have any interesting stories from back then?
Not really. And, you know, even if I did, I would be kind of still discreet in case these gentlemen are still alive.
Yes.
But there were some doozies.
Yes, I'll bet. Well, I don't know if you know that hairdressers and bartenders are the most talked to people in terms of personal issues next to psychologists.
I believe that. And you really, the assumption goes that when you work with your hands, you're not too bright. When really the opposite in those fields are true. If you're stupid, you don't have clientele. Because these people want to talk, and these gents, of course, wanted to talk about their work and what was going on without divulging great secrets.
Yes.
But you had to know what they were talking about. So the Washington Post was almost, always under my arm.
Oh, you did your prep every day.
Just about. I had to know what was going on.
Yes. And all those varied experiences, I mean, those must have really helped you as a journalist.
Yes, because I was reading, and also a lot of my friends were journalists because I was very closely allied with a post photographer at the time, and he taught me a lot. But I never thought it would take. That's the last thing I thought of till much later.
So you're saying that you actually knew people who were in journalism when you were in Washington, D.C.?
Yes.
Got it. So there might have been an inkling there that was something.
Mostly photographers and not so much writers. And it was so funny because my friend wanted to be a writer, originally, and wound up a photographer. I wanted to be a photographer and wound up to be a writer.
Yeah, well, and you did not grow up here. You grew up in Berlin.
Yeah, in West Berlin.
And immigrated at 16 to the U.S.
Yeah, to Washington, D.C.
Yeah, and what was that like to come here?
It was interesting because I was a real Berliner, and Berliners are a little bit like New Yorkers. Run off at the mouth, I just, know what they want. And my parents dumped me in a Catholic school where the exact opposite behavior, of course, was appreciated. So I had a few brushes with the law and Sister Reginald.
Sister Reginald, huh? Is that her real name? Do you remember?
It was. Yeah.
Stuck in your brain?
How could I forget?
Yeah. So what about other events? Like you were a stewardess. Flight attendant.
Yes, I was flight attendant for what was then Northwest Orient Airlines.
I remember it.
And I wanted to go and explore Asia, which was the big deal. What I did not take into account is that you had to have a lot of seniority to get to that point. And I wanted to be based in Washington, D.C., because that's what I was used to. Big mistake. I should have gone to Minneapolis and then to Seattle and done it this way. But when you're 22 years old, what do you know?
Yes. So if you had done it the other way, would that have given you more seniority? Is that it?
It would have just been a more direct path and, sometimes seniority, or it's not always what you know, but who you know. And it would have been more helpful, let's put it that way.
Got it. So then you studied stained glass.
Yes.
And you actually became a stained glass artist,
Yes.
and your work is in homes in DC, correct?
Yes.
Yes. So what attracted you to stained glass?
It was given to me as a gift. The class was given to me as a gift.
Oh.
And by the aforementioned photographer, because my style of painting was very linear and then very strong in line, like Bernard Buffet, for example. And so he thought, stained glass. And I said, stained what? Mm-hmm. And so I took the first class, and I think, my fingers looked like I'd taken up apprentice butchering. And the second class, I was hooked.
Ah.
Band-Aids notwithstanding, I loved making those things. Mm-hmm. And one of my windows still hangs in my house today, and I have a whole bunch packed away. And now my daughter wants to learn. She said, can you teach me stained glass? And so it goes on somehow, the art travels.
Yes, you were mentioning that both of your children are very artistic.
Yes.
Yeah. And then you were doing commercial studio stained glass. Is that different, or?
Oh, very, very different, because what I had learned, from this private instructor, half of it was dead wrong. So I had to relearn everything in the commercial studio, and how to fix the windows so they wouldn't buckle and everything like that. And soldering, all the techniques were different because we were commercially, something the size of this table, but nothing smaller than half the size of this table.
My goodness.
And so we had to know what we were doing. Mm-hmm. And we had different duties, like sometimes we cut, sometimes we just soldered. Mm-hmm. I never got into design, that somebody else did that, but it was a good learning experience.
Yes.
And I did that for 2 studios, one in Orange and one in Costa Mesa, and had to hang it up when I found out I was pregnant, because lead and pregnancy don't get along very well.
Yes, for sure. So you even have some stained glass pieces here in Orange County.
Yes.
Wow. Still? Could I go and see one? Or?
No, because they were done mostly for contractors, and there was a big fashion for stained glass in homes, which then sort of receded. So I don't know if they're even still there, and if there will be ever a renaissance of that. It's hard to tell at this point. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I have some pieces in my home that I brought from Chicago.
Okay.
Yeah, they're beautiful. So then, let's see, then you took a magazine production class.
Yes, because I had finally decided that I really need to be in art school. Never mind this linguistic stuff. But I thought, what am I going to do with this? My kids grow, I'm going to need to earn a living. So I thought magazine productions, you put little pages together and put the pictures together. And somebody said, and you have to write 3 articles a semester. And
there was some kind of W law, right, going on then in the state of California?
That came in my art classes, but we had to prove that we could write. So on field trips, we wrote reports and everything else. And everybody liked what I wrote, except me. Mm-hmm. And when in this magazine productions class, when they said I had to write, I said, no, ain't gonna happen. And then down the stairs, I figured, okay, Walsh, and now what are you gonna do? Back up. Okay, I'll give it a go. Mm-hmm. And all of a sudden, I was winning prizes for my writing, first and second prizes, and my drawings, honorable mention, maybe if I was lucky. Aha. So somebody told me something, and I changed my major to journalism, and really didn't look back. I was on fire.
Oh, that's wonderful. And it's amazing how life does that to you.
Yeah.
I mean, you're going along with one idea about what you're going to be and do.
Exactly.
And then there's like a right turn, and you discover you're quite good and gifted in something else.
Right. Yeah. That's more or less the way it went down.
Mm-hmm. And it usually involves an instructor or a teacher that points out to you.
Yes, I was very, very fortunate. I had several, and the one that put our stories in, He was Bud Little, and he was the journalism advisor at Santa Ana College, an institution that I'm still in love with. I mean, you talk about diversity and fun, and it was a really, really good job.
And is that a community college?
Yes, in Santa Ana.
Yes, and you've spoken really highly about the community colleges in this area.
Yeah, especially, if you're trying to find your way and try different things without breaking the bank, especially nowadays, way to go. And I would go on the barricades for that system.
Yes, yeah, that sounds wonderful. So you got these awards, and then you got a scholarship to Chapman College.
Yeah, Chapman University now.
University.
And yeah, that was the big break, because they really made a journalist out of me. There was my advisor was Susan Paterno, and she would not tolerate any idiocy. I mean, you either performed or you didn't. And we had to act like real reporters. And I walked out of the act. She was an A, which much to my amazement.
You walked out of there what?
With an A.
Oh, with an A.
Yes. And she helped me find my first job then at the Orange County Register. And I started freelancing, writing about, my first assignment was about art. And then they liked what I did, and I got a job in Fountain Valley, at the community paper. And that lasted about 3 years till they dissolved some of the community papers. And I was in line with all the unemployed again. And so I decided to resaddle this old horse and start writing about the arts. And that went over really well.
And so this is another iteration of you.
Yeah.
Which is now, from journalism to journalism in the arts.
Exactly. And now back to community reporting, basically.
Which is, I guess, where you started.
Full circle, yes.
So tell me a little bit about what it was like to study with Susan Paterno.
She had very high expectations. When we were in that class, then she figured we're there for a reason, and part of that was wanting to be there. And she said, you have to know from the moment you walk out of here, what's going on in the street. And I had one thing that was a little bit harder because I was older. I was in my 40s. And all the little cub reporters were in their 20s and had a lot more stamina than I did. But we muddled on through. And she was very fair. She insisted on accuracy. And by the time we got out of her class, we knew pretty much what we were doing. You always learn in the street, and you learn by doing. But as far as taking the profession seriously and really knowing the basics, she had it.
Well, you're really the first reporter that we've had on the show.
Oh, really?
Yes. So you might have to give our audience some education. So a cub reporter is
a beginner, and they always put the beginners, in the city council meetings and all, where you couldn't make any mistakes. And then I had a couple of mayors, which shall remain nameless, who had a beef with the register, and so they would take it out on me. Go talk to my editor. And I remember one incident where he was moaning again about what the register had written. And I finally stood up and I said, first thing, learn who to complain to. You might be much more effective. I was livid.
Wow.
But, at my age, then I figure you get away with that sort of thing.
Yes. Which maybe the younger cub reporters would not have even thought to do.
Exactly. And that's where the life experience and everything comes in again. When you have to stand up for yourself, in a pinch, you can actually do that.
Yes, for sure. So then, do you remember any of those first stories? I mean, the specifics of them or the research you had to do?
Honestly, I don't.
That's fine.
It's been going since 95.
Yeah,
I
that's a
graduated in
long time.
94, so that's, I don't think my brain goes back that far.
Yeah.
Now it's more like day to day.
Yes, I understand perfectly. So when you're going to write a story, well, I mean, I brought one here. In fact, we talked about two that you were very proud of. Well, one was The Violence of Hope,
Yes,
and that was in the Globe.
yes.
And then this other one that I pulled from recently, which is Combating Loneliness, which I thought was a great article.
Thank you, thank you.
Yes.
Yeah, I have to say here also, I have a very capable editor, Anita Ghosh, and she and I work together, pretty well, and she's pretty even as far as changing your copy. I mean, what you're saying originally, about 80% of the time stays intact. So
Yes, yes.
more than you can say about some. And I really, really enjoy writing these stories because I get to know the community of Laguna Woods. And people remember me sometimes more than I remember them.
Oh, that's usually the case, I think.
And it's great. I mean, I have no complaints.
So you've been here since 2013.
Correct.
You've seen a lot of changes in the community. But how do you end up getting to write this on combating loneliness? Do you suggest the idea, or does somebody come to you, or both? Or?
Most of the time, people contact Anita and they email her things, or she hears of something, and she knows that I like to deal with issues, and so she throws them my way usually. I don't get around as much as I should, and then go hunting for stories. But I figure, well, she's got it all at her fingertips. Bring it on.
Yes, yes, and that really is, in some ways, an ideal way to.
For me, it works very well because I can put my energies where I feel I need them the most.
So then, what goes into writing an article like this? Where do you start, or how does it happen? Because this is quite an extensive article.
Right. Well, you get the idea first, and then you look around, like, what is loneliness? What does it entail? Are you lonely tonight and sing to Elvis Presley, or are you moldering in your apartment, having health problems that nobody knows about? And so you have to be clear where you're going with that story, and then you start talking to people and start interviewing them, and take your notes, and then more research, and then rechecking your facts, and then finally putting the thing together. And then you start shuffling paragraphs and till it reads like something that somebody actually would want to read.
Yes, yes.
So that's the short version.
Oh, well, thank you. And I learned a new word today, which is lead, L-E-D-E.
Yes, so that's the first paragraph that gets you to keep on reading. So if you have a crappy lead, you're probably not going to have much of an audience.
Yeah. I was fascinated to learn that. And then going back to your first job at the OC Register, you said that job was really hard.
It was.
What made it hard?
Well, honestly speaking, the hours, I would sometimes come into the office at 9 o'clock in the morning and be home 11 o'clock at night.
Whoa.
And we didn't have the technology then. So I would go on a story, let's say from Fountain Valley to Garden Grove, go to a city council meeting. Then I had to write the thing because I would have...
And typewriter, you mean?
No, not quite.
Word processor?
There were word processors and computers, but no laptops yet.
Okay. Got it.
And the first cell phone I had was about the length of my arm.
Yes, I remember those.
And, all this driving around. And then, of course, you had to meet your deadline or else. And also have everything correct. And then all that typing I would have to do in Anaheim. So I would go from Garden Grove to Anaheim, and then from Anaheim to Tustin, where I could lay down my tired head finally. And so, it was a lot of work.
Yes, and that was for 3 years that you did that.
Yeah. But I figure, well, that's what you wanted to do. Now go for it.
Yes, looking and getting to know you, you've always been a hard worker.
Not so much a hard worker. I can be quite lazy, actually.
All right.
But I aim for efficiency. And do I really need to do this? And that doesn't have to do anything with not wanting to do it, but does it help the efforts? I don't like useless enterprise.
Yes, yes. And so when you get a deadline for an article,
Yeah.
how does that work? I mean, do you get the article and then they say, okay, we want that in 2 hours, or is...
I've had situations like that when they actually stuck me in the newsroom at the actual register. Okay, Walsh, 20 minutes.
Wow.
And that was really tough. But here, when I have a deadline, since we're weekly, which makes life easier.
Yes, it does.
So let's say Anita wants something on Monday, and she'll have it on Monday, and then it goes in, the following Thursday. So we agree on a date, let's put it this way, of publication. And then on that Monday before, we publish on Thursdays, so it has to be in. And that sort of suits me because I thought I was old at 40, but no, that's not.
Yeah, we won't go to the exact number, but
the energies. I'm very careful about applying my energies. Let's put it this way.
that's right. We all have to be that way now. Absolutely, and it's a good thing. It's a good thing.
Absolutely, it's what you have to do.
Yes, because otherwise you just burn out and that's it. Done.
Yeah, no sense in complaining.
Yes, that's right. That's the other thing. Nobody will listen. So when you were doing the art journalism, you wrote for Riviera Magazine,
Yes.
Art and Living, and
Yes.
other magazines in
Right,
the area.
yeah.
Yeah. And did those have deadlines?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, but the magazines were monthly, so I had a
good
monthly. I had a monthly column in Riviera where I had to pick a topic and an artist and everything else. You have to also consider that you want to do this, but you're not doing this alone. If you can't get a hold of somebody,
Yes.
or they don't want to,
Yes.
or something, you have to do a little,
Yes.
that takes time, and then you have editors, sometimes writing, rewriting, sometimes adding their own schmear, and all of a
Yes.
sudden, oh, you wrote this. Actually, I didn't.
Yes.
And so, but never a dull moment. Seriously.
Yes, yes. And in speaking of never a dull moment, you interviewed the emerging artist Jeff Koons.
No, he was not emerging.
Oh.
He was already very, very much established.
And how did you get to him then?
I called him, and he was very, very open, and it was a fun interview. He even gave me his cell phone number, which it's been a while, no longer have. But the other day I saw him on 60 Minutes, and I thought, oh, hey, Jeff.
Yes.
And when he first came out, when I first saw his work, I said, oh, yuck, come on. So we have a basketball swimming in dirty water. Is that really? And then you got to know, and especially a 60 Minutes thing, showed what made him tick and how it was done and why he has all these assistants and everything else. And I was weighing in my mind, what's more important, the execution or the idea, or who's the artist here? So it was interesting.
Did you write that in the article when you interviewed him? Or?
No. We just wrote about him at the time.
Yeah. And about how long had he been practicing then?
Oh God, he started when he was pretty young. I don't remember his actual age, but
So his art was kind of like pop art?
it is. Well, if you remember the little doggy, the blow-up doggy, or Michael Jackson was his monkey. He would sculpt these images and just put his own stamp on what we were already looking at, but that might not have registered all that much with us. So he put a new face on things.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. And would you say he was the most famous person that you ever interviewed?
In a pop and in line who's still alive, for now I would say Yes, but there were others. There was an old gallery in Los Angeles called the Ferris Gallery, and they had a lot of the light and space people, and I interviewed quite a few of those.
Light and space?
Light and space, it's a movement, the shiny surfaces. And
yeah, so you could do a whole other show on art.
yeah, I would have to do some studying again because things change so quickly.
They
But
do.
I have one little dagger in my belt, and that is my art appreciation class in the emeritus program.
Oh, you're
And
taking that?
I'm actually taking that because I figure, oh, you fool, you wrote about all this stuff. You can never get enough new perspectives on anything. And this lady by the name of Laura Hoffman, who was also my photography teacher, is to the manner born when it comes to teaching. Absolutely. I mean, I missed the class today for us.
Oh, well, thank you.
I will make it up. No, it's really wonderful. In fact, as much as I was praising the community college system, the emeritus system is fantastic.
Oh, that's good to know.
Yeah.
That's good to know.
Yeah, it
'Cause,
really keeps the old brain.
yes, and that is so important for
yeah.
everybody here in Laguna Woods.
Yeah, especially
Yes.
this bird.
Well, this one too. So, just curious, you identify yourself as a correspondent.
That's not necessarily my thing.
Oh,
That's what they call me,
Anita's.
or the registers, or the
Got it.
the
Okay.
publication. It sounds a little highfalutin, but what else are you going to say?
Well, reporter, I guess, or
Reporter,
there's
yeah.
other, I don't remember what the other
So-
references are.
Generically, I'm a correspondent. I always think of Walter Cronkite.
Yes,
Or
and you're
something.
not in that league.
If only.
Yes, that would be great, wouldn't it?
Well, it was a good way to learn English.
Yes. Again, very resourceful. Very resourceful.
It was my parents actually. They stuck me in front of the TV and say, "Here, listen to some intelligent English." Because before that, I had school English, just yeah. But and then I was madly in love with Marvin Culp and the correspondence of then.
Yes, yes. Well, I'm curious, and you may not want to comment on this. Do you have thoughts about how journalism has changed over the years?
Yes, I have. They really beat the joy out of it. I mean, when you read a paper and you sat on the tube, somewhere in New York or in London or in Berlin, and you had your paper, and it opened the world to you. And the people really had to really work at it. And you had to not only know what you're doing, but you had to back it up.
Yes, yes.
Now on the internet, anything goes. I say that your hair is green, prove me otherwise.
Yes, yes. And it's combative.
Yes, it's combative, and of course, the pay is not exactly what it used to be.
Yes, yes. Well, we are just about out of time. I will ask one more thing, and that is, what advice do you have for aspiring journalists?
Have at it. If you enjoy it and it's your life and it brings you out there and it brings you out of yourself, which it does if you're any good, then go for it. If you don't make as much money as you were hoping for, well, beats being a barista. Nothing against
That's right. No,
nothing against baristas,
but
but no, seriously, I still say go for it and try to, if you have convictions and they're honest, then make the changes.
yes.
Talk to your editors, talk to people, share your observations, and be honest. Above all, be honest.
Yes, very good advice. Well, I thank you so much for being on the show.
Oh, thank you for having me.
Oh, I'm delighted. I was kind of surprised when you said yes, so. I got to get Anita on here.
Okay.
That's the next one.
Okay.
Yes, well, this concludes another episode of Right on Track, brought to you by the Publishing Club of Laguna Woods. This show can be seen every Monday at 10:30 a.m. and every Thursday at 4:30. Thank you so much to the staff here at the studio and also to my guests, Daniela
Oh,
Walsh.
you're so welcome, and hello, everybody.
Take care.
Thank you.